of research projects developed by University of Aveiro and Instituto de Etnomusicologia, Centro de Estudos em Música e Dança in Portugal. The SOMA project, Sound and Memories of Aveiro, aims to construct a physical and digital archive for memory dedicated to the music and sounds of this specific region in Portugal. Theoretical formulations about the role of sound archives are generally focused on the nature of the archive, its political, economic, and symbolic dimensions, post-colonial perspectives, repatriating matters, and collaborative archiving process. However, few writers have been able to draw on any systematic research in the role of collectors and amateurs as an intrinsic part of a sound archive. As pointed out by Harry Malcolmson in an article published in 2012 in Ethnomusicology, I quote, "Amateur scholars such as aficionados, fans, intellectuals are rarely valued in the 21st century academy, despite their often encyclopedic knowledge," end of citation. The past 10 years, however, have seen important revisions in the field of sociology of music that points to new understandings about the role of amateurs and collectors. My main goal here is to discuss the role of these amateur music collectors for the construction of a collective and collaborative sound archive in Aveiro, Portugal. Through a series of interviews with two retired musicians and cultural agents that have personal sound collections in different municipalities of Aveiro region, my goal is to discuss the following questions. 1, how can ethnomusicologists operate as mediators between private collectors and public institutions? 2, shouldn't we consider collectors' knowledge as an essential part of the sound archive they hold? And 3, shouldn't we consider the attachments between collectors and their collections as an intrinsic part of a sound archive? To address these questions, this paper has been divided in 2 parts. In the first one, I will present a brief overview about the main goals of SOMA projects and a brief contextualization about Aveiro region in Portugal, stressing some historical motivations for the construction of this specific sound archive. In the second part, my aim is to present a case study based on the role of 2 private collectors and their association to SOMA projects. Also known as the Portuguese Venice, thanks to its small network of canals, Aveiro is a city and a municipality in the central region of Portugal with 78,000 inhabitants. Situated on the edge of an extensive coastal lagoon system, the city is historically known for its salt production, as well for its seaweed harvest, which was in the past used as a fertilizer in the area. In the last decade, however, Aveiro became part of the Portuguese touristic map, attracting thousands of people interested in its singular moliceiros, that are Aveiro's equivalents to Venice gondolas, to its singular Art Nouveau architecture and its charming beaches. In 2008, Aveiro was designated as capital of the intermunicipal community of Aveiro and Baixo Volga, a political territorial unity that comprises 11 municipalities and an estimated population of 370,000 inhabitants. Sound practice are a very important part of community's life in Aveiro's region. We can find more than 100 musical associations in the 11 municipalities that are part of CIRA, which includes brass bands, orchestras, plucked strings ensembles, folkloric groups, pop and rock bands, among others. Despite its vibrant musical scene, sound archiving has never been part of public politics in Aveiro, which reflects also a lack of sound archiving politics in a national dimension. In fact, Portugal is the only country in Europe that never had a public national sound archive. That was one of the main reasons for the creation of the SOMA research project. Financed by the Portuguese Foundation for Science and Technology and the European Union, SOMA comprises an interdisciplinary team composed by ethnomusicologists, designers, audiovisual technicians, librarians, musicians, artistic producers, and members of the community, totalizing 23 research members. As explained before, SOMA aims to construct a physical and digital space for memory dedicated to local music and sounds where it will be possible, one, to preserve a sound and musical heritage associated with the region of Aveiro, two, to recall rural and urban spaces and their dynamics based on historical sounds, three, to inspire actions of reactivating memory through creative process associated with music and sound, and four, to mobilize citizens in the construction of a collective repository where the communities will feel represented. To achieve this specific goal, SOMA has been working in partnership with local musicians and collectors that have an important part in the construction of local sound memories. And that brings us to the second issue I want to discuss in this paper, the role of amateurs and private collectors as a significant part of musical heritage in Aveiro region. For ethnomusicological studies, collectors were commonly associated with folklorists, especially in countries where folklore was an important part of the discipline past, and that includes Latin American and East Europe, as pointed out by Stephen Blum. For Brazilian anthropologist Luiz Rodolfo Vilhena, I quote, "The folklorist became the paradigm of a non-academic intellectual bound up with a romantic relationship to his object," end of quote. This lack of academic confidence in collectors' knowledge is not restricted to folklorists. Popular urban music non-academic experts are also part of ethnomusicological critics. Harry Malcolmson, as mentioned before, published in 2012 a paper focused on the role of danzón aficionados in Mexico and how they, I quote, negotiate their field of expertise by employing overlapping strategies, accumulating myriad facts and truths, creating the possibility of ignorance in others, and competing for hegemonic masculine capital, end of citation. In the field of sociology of art, collectors are frequently criticized as well. For French sociologist Antoine Hénion, I quote, "The aim of sociology of art was both to criticize any claim of autonomy for works of art and aesthetic judgment, and to return the experience of aesthetic pleasure, often regarded as immediate and subjective, to its social and historical determinations. In this sense, collectors and amateurs are commonly seen as cultural dopes that are merely passive subjects of a bond whose real determinations they ignore." The past 20 years, however, have seen important revisions in the field of sociology of music that points to new understandings about the role of amateurs and collectors. As pointed out in recent works by Antoine Hénion and Tia Denora, far from being socially nerds, amateurs and non-academic experts are now seen as active and productive subjects. They constantly transform objects and works, performance, and tastes. That's the case of the two private collectors that are working in collaboration with SOMA project and that I would like to present now, Fausto Macedo and Francisco Oliveira. Fausto Macedo was born on August 26, 1937, in the city of Severo do Volga. He is the author of the book Severo do Volga a Cantar, a songbook with around 300 popular songs from the region that is still unpublished. He started working at the age of 19 at Fábrica de Massa Paradela, one of the most important factories in the region, where he carried out various activities until his retirement in 1994. His connection with music began in 1950 at the age of 13, when friends invited him to join the Severance Philharmonic. Despite the protests of his parents, who were against his music activities, Fausto Macedo began to play trumpet in this band, local band, where he stayed for the following 44 years. The daily routine of musical activities in the band and the practice of copying scores gave Fausto a familiarity with musical writing and a taste for collecting material. In 1975, he began to collect popular songs in a notebook, in a handwritten notebook, to preserve local songs, as he said. He bought a pianola to check out the melodies and soon filled his notebook with 73 popular songs. The next step was to acquire a sound recorder to register some folklore groups in the region, such as the Rancho Folclórico de Severo do Volga and Canto e Cordas, a musical group linked to the Senior University of Severo do Volga. He was 70 years old when he decided to buy a computer to help him in the task of collecting music in order to write a songbook with local songs. He began to search for a sheet music editing software that would allow him to transpose to digital formats the melodies that he had in handwritten notebooks. As he tells, I decided to buy a software to help me to edit the music I collected. In the beginning, I had a free editor, but it was not good for my purpose. So I decided to buy a Finale that costs 308 euros. Finale is the name of a software for editing music. I had no idea about how to use that software, so I bought also a manual. He was 70 years old in this occasion. It was a really hard task in the beginning, but after many efforts, I succeeded to learn it. Using this software, he concluded Severo do Volga Cantar, a songbook containing around 300 popular songs, as I mentioned. Fausto Macedo's actuation as a local researcher, however, is not restricted to this book. His collection of scores is also notable for its diversity and rarity. It contains archives of old brass bands from the region, material that includes musical pieces from before 1840. Soma Project is now trying to establish a partnership with Severo do Volga municipality in order to digitize Fausto Macedo collection. The idea is to bring not only his collections to Soma Project, but also his memories and ideas about music, sound, and groups from the region. Through a series of interviews, Soma Project aims to humanize Fausto Macedo's archive, giving him voice to express not only his desires concerning the future of his archive, but also the memories associated to each item of the collection. The second name I want to bring to this brief case study is Francisco Silva. He was born in Águeda, a city near Aveiro, in 1942. Since his early childhood, he had a strong connection with local folkloric groups, and in his youth, he decided to buy a tape recorder to register them. His collection nowadays comprises about 300 video files in VHS format, 45 cassette tapes in audio format, as well as several other records in various media, including cultural activities in the region, records of folklore groups, musical presentations, testimonials, among others. In 2020, thanks to a partnership between Soma Project and the municipality of Águeda, his collection began to be digitized in Solab, an audiovisual laboratory specialized in digitization that is coordinated by sound engineer Isaac Raimundo, member of Soma project. The idea here is not only to digitize the material, but to work in a strong association with the collector. Due to the restrictions imposed by COVID-19, Soma project had to develop new strategies to work with Francisco Silva. After the digitization process, the material was cataloged in an online database called Omeka. Francisco Silva, from his home, had access to the database and was responsible for completing the metadata from each sound find of his own collection. Moreover, a series of interviews with him were produced before the pandemic year. In these interviews, Francisco Silva could explain not only his attachment to each item of his archive, but also his passion for collection. As he says, for me, my personal archives is a kind of extension of my own life. Indeed, it's an extension of my parents' lives and also from my, let's say, spiritual background. That is because the archives is the only representation of the voices of loved people that disappeared and that I still have in my memory. In certain way, this archive is part of my own body. So to conclude, the inclusion of non-academic collectors, not only as merely donators or informants, but as an active part in the process of archiving, is an essential part of Soma project. Beyond the classical division between researchers and informants, the project's main goal is to understand the archive not only as sets of things or sets of objects, but as a process of knowledge where each member of community, including non-academic specialists and collectors, has a crucial role. As pointed out by Landau and Fargan, recent ethnomusicological approach towards sound archives claims for the creation of more equitable conditions between researchers and different communities. In this sense, the concept of proactive archiving is essential. It presupposes the engagement of the entire community in the process of collecting, organizing, and fundamentally, producing meanings about the archive. To achieve this goal, it's essential to reconsider the role of amateur music collectors. As Antoine Ennion states, far from being the cultural dog at whose expense the sociology of culture built its critical fortune, the amateur is a virtuoso of experimentation, be it static, technical, social, mental, or corporeal. In this sense, collectors' knowledge, memories, passions, and discourses are definitely an intrinsic part of their collection. Dealing with these immaterial parts of the archive remains certainly, in my point of view, the main challenge of our work as ethnomusicologists. Thank you. I cannot listen to you, Miguel, sorry. I cannot listen.
Something happened since Miguel's sound is turned on, but we can't hear you, Miguel.
Now?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, okay. What's my headphone? Okay, thank you very much, Pedro, for your presentation. It's really very stimulating, and I was saying that I really appreciate the decolonial texture of the SOMAT project. So we have time for some questions, please. Well, I have many questions, but one at least. I see that there are many bridges or mediation in the project, in SOMA project. Bridges between scholar and non-scholar people, between rural culture and urban culture, between institutional practices and non-institutional practices. And my question is, where do you find more tensions, problem, or disadvantages, or weakness, or whatever?
Well,
Is it clear?
Yeah, thank you, Miguel. That's a very good question. I think the SOMA project is a kind of, it's aligned with this new approach in ethnomusicology that are linked to this idea of a proactive archiving or community archiving, and that is certainly gives us lots of challenges in the daily routine of the project. But I would say that we have a problem. Possibly the main problem is linked with the ways of archiving in the university, because we are trying to use the system that our library uses, and they use a specific database that's called collective access. But we have a lot of problems, bureaucratic problems, I would say, and not only bureaucratic, but also problems that are linked with copyright, for instance, that was mentioned before in the previous section. And that's something hard to deal in the daily routine of the project. Of course, we have this challenge of being every time dealing with public institutions, with political institutions like municipalities and things like that, and that's not easy. But I would say that we have this kind of technological problem, and sometimes it's hard to deal with.
Okay, thank you very much. We have some minutes more. Okay, so we can move to the next speaker. Thank you very much, dear Pedro. So we can move to the next speakers, who is Susana Sardo. She is professor of ethnomusicology at Aveiro University, Portugal, where she coordinates the Aveiro branch of the Institute of Ethnomusicology. Since 1987, she has been carried out fieldwork and archival research in Goa and the Goan diaspora, as well as in Portugal. So, Susana, please.
Thank you. I don't know if I think I'm, you have to, I think I'm frozen, no? Am I frozen?
No, we hear you well.
I was seeing everybody frozen in the last minutes. So, but fortunately now it is working. Okay, thank you. So I'm gonna share my desktop. Okay. Oops. Here. Sorry. So this paper, thank you all of you for being here, listening this meeting. I hope next one we can be together and sharing our coffee breaks and some more comments about our research. So this paper, my paper, is focused on analyzing how internet possibilities of archiving can, in fact, generate sound archives for all in times of exomemory. Before starting, I would like to situate myself in the context of this meeting as a researcher acting in the field of the archives, as a European belonging to a Portuguese university and to a research center in ethnomusicology, which is a quite privileged situation when compared to colleagues from some African countries, from India, or from South America. Considering my place of enunciation, I hope, however, to reach the greatest number of people with regard to the importance of what I have and I try to say and inquire. I will now start by clarifying some concepts I'm using in my paper. The first is the concept of exomemory. Since the beginning of my work with archives, and as an ethnomusicologist interested in recording and documenting musical practices, I have been concerned with my action on the memory of others. In fact, when we talk about archives, we are also talking about memory, because what we archive is in fact documentation that will inevitably become an inscription of a memory. However, what we register is always the memory of others filtered by our own perception of what is or is not important to register. Whenever we do research, we focus our attention on a particular phenomenon that interests us, and in doing so, we cut from the wall what reinforces our academic argument. We register, therefore, the exomemory, that is the memory of others, a memory that we didn't live and that is external to us, as has been deeply explained by the epistemologist Antonio Garcia Gutierrez from Spain. Ethnomusicologists and other agents interested in recording sound and music did nothing but produce actions of exomemory archivization. They do it in a quite hegemonic way, as the exomemory is validated by archivists or by the researcher who decides what and how certain phenomena should or should not be transformed into an inscription of memory and consequently archived. Concerning sound archives, our day's possibility for new forms of archiving is not only available to researchers and or official authorized archivists, but also to all those who can access the use of sound equipment like a smartphone, a computer, or manage an open source internet platform. This situation shifts the decision on the relevance of the information to be archived to an apparent more democratic and less hegemonic levels of authority. Everything can be archived, everything can be an archive, and everything can be archived. And apparently everybody is authorized to archive their own memory, which in a certain way transforms contemporary sound archives in archives of true exomemory. Everybody can now archive their own memory through sounds independently of the researcher or the authorized archivists. In a recent paper, I argued that this situation is only an illusion created by the apparent facilities of the internet. In fact, while each of us can build our personal archive of memory, it needs to be submitted to the classificatory logic of the virtual and digital systems of storage. Pedro spoke about this in a few minutes ago. We have the perception that we are archiving our memory respecting our own will, but in fact, we are again submitted to an order that is external to ourselves if we want to inscribe our memory in the most endorsed archive, the internet. But that's not the point of this presentation, as I'm more interested in understanding how, in a certain way, the internet can also produce chaos and a sense of disorder, ethical and social, through the overflow of information for those who are internet users. This is what the Chilean epistemologist Andrés Tello defines as anarchive and anarchivism. According to Tello, and I quote, "Anarchivism not only disturbs the sleep of those who occupy hierarchical and well-off positions in a historical moment, but rather changes the principles of legitimacy protected and socially arranged by institutional classifications and through everyday recording technologies of the bodies, their routines, and their affections," end of quote. The unarchive is a result of the archive impulse, a necessity to register not only data, but also the paradata, which means the process of archiving, a facility provided by the internet and the new ways of registry, especially for sound and image. For Tello, the archive impulse, which draws to the unarchive, is never an involuntary action, but a social machine, a result of the relationship between humans and the technologies that allows us to register sound or image with an ordinary smartphone and to upload the result into the internet almost at the same time. Consequently, the huge amount of information that can be archived exceeds that which is humanly searchable for a common usuary, and frequently the result of a research can be demotivating by the excess of possibilities it generates. As Tello points out, each year, I'm quoting, "we produce more information than has been produced throughout the history of the human species, an exponential increase that will quickly lead us to register in just a few days the same amount of armored data from the registry of cave paintings up to the invention of UNIVAC 1, the first computer commercialized in the 20th century." End of quote. In fact, for the most part of us, the internet is an unlimited place where we can lodge bytes and bytes of information. We have the perception that the digital memory, unlike social memory, is effectively uncountable and unlimited. However, the human possibility of dealing with the digital archive depends on the human condition to deal with the unlimited or with the infinite, and above all, depends on the social possibility to exceed the internet archive or to the unarchive. Not all of us have the privilege of the internet surfing. Not all of us have the possibility to use YouTube, Spotify, or Vimeo. Not all of us have the perception of excess because the majority of us, more than 50% of the population, are not under any excess condition except the underdeveloped one. Nevertheless, for those who have the desire and the impulse of archive, the internet illusion is also the illusion of the openness of the democratic archive, the one which can break inequalities, and above all, the possibility to promote a true exo-memory repository, which in the case of music and sound is apparently possible by recording with very little means everything that sounds. Some questions arise in this context. What new threats and demands do the illusion of internet bring to us? To what extent can the excess of data, paradata, authority, and accessibility in the case of sound archives impoverish the archive itself? Who are reliable in the process of unarchiving? Is this process a result of the desire to create a big archive of humanity, a place for a real exo-memory, a place where all of us are represented? And which are the limits of the unarchive when we refer to privacy, individual rights, or authority? In the case of music and sound, how do these concern sound? I like to focus now on one of the cases I plan to discuss when I propose the summary of this meeting, the Bytes for All project. I want to say that when I proposed this paper, I was making fieldwork in India. It was January 2020. After 2 months after this presentation, the draft of my presentation, the pandemic arrived. So since January 2020, I was not traveling to India, so I could not make deeper field work. But even like that, I like to speak about this Bytes for All project, which inspired this paper also. So Bytes for All is a project created by Frederic Noronha, a Goan collector of sounds, images, and written documents, which represents what Hetty Malcolmson defines as an aficionado. Frederic Noronha is a former Goan journalist and a strong activist in preserving what he calls the true culture of Goa. He founded in 1999 an important book publisher in Goa, and since then, he has dedicated himself to documenting almost all the events that take place in Goa and also the voice of people who normally do not have the right to have a voice in the archive. In his mission as a memory hunter, he created the Bytes for All project. The word all in Bytes for All refers simultaneously to users and to those people who are represented and registered in the internet. According to Bytes for All, everyone must have the right to access the internet and enjoy what it offers, and at the same time, have a voice in the archive that the internet produces. Noronha records everything he can catch and does it as effective work, an act of love and militancy, as referred by Paul Long in relation to collectors. He travels with a portable audio recording and a smartphone for high quality photos in his pocket. Every time he is participating in a conference, a concert, a class, or any other event of our daily life that can be used as an archival inscription, at least in his mind, he records without any prior permission or informed consent. Immediately after recording, he uploads the data of the internet across multiple platforms according to the nature of the information. Every sound recorded is spread through Facebook and stored in the platform Internet Archive that we are seeing here. I have a link for the Internet Archive here, but I don't know if you can see it now. Are you seeing the link? Are you seeing it?
I think yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So here is the place where he archived the sounds he records. So a lot of them, and he is not using any other criteria. Only it's a serendipity. He's going to a conference, or he knows that someone is going to speak, or someone is going to sing. So, and he goes and he records without any permission. He believes that the knowledge and everything which is free, which is open to the public is public. So we see, for example, in this case, we can see that he was recording a fado singer in Goa, and we can listen a little bit. I just want to ask you to pay attention that in this example, the recording was made on the 11th January 2020, and it was uploaded in 12th January 2020. Immediately, so a few hours ago because after the recording. And we can even listen the informal talk of the singer and the action of moving the recorder to a place where the recorder was more close to the singer. Data and data are there to document the moment as it is. Let's just try to listen. Oh, I forgot to click share on the share. Sorry.
It's in screen sharing options.
It's not possible to optimize to video clip, but
you should start the demonstration of the screen first.
Okay. Let's see if you can listen.
Ancestral house, and I'm graced to have a very beautiful guest staying with me, Anne, who will be helping out as we move forward with our project. Sonia has been one of the most inspirational singers. I first heard her about 10 years ago when there was a
He's moving the microphone now.
And my family and I was
and then we have the singer singing. You can see.
Há dias que marcam a alma e a vida da gente, e outros de quem nem o nome lembramos ouvir. São emoções que dão.
Okay. So how can I take this out? Are you seeing my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay. So Noronha's action is based on the desire to transform the internet in a real exomemory archive, offering a place to all voices, including subaltern voices, which usually have no right to be archived or the right to have the status of memory. In his Flickr archive, where he today have 66,000 photos, Noronha defines himself as, and I'm quoting, you can see there, based independent journalist with a keen interest in photography, boring guy, bookworm, long hours behind the computer, still getting a kick out of journalism, believes a lot in sharing and the Creative Commons, co-founder of Bytes for All, deep into free software too, as a user, not as a techie. So Noronha generated a huge archive of memory, which started in Goa and is now spread through other parts of India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. Of course, it's not a physical place, but the idea and the project started from Goa. It is based on the idea that knowledge and memory belong to all, and that, and I quote, information technology and the internet can help in taking up social development issues. Bytes for All is one of the oldest information and communication technologies for development networks in South Asia, which, end of quote, which in 2005 became part of the Association for Progressive Communications in South Asia. The archives generated by Noronha are apparently democratic and open access. However, only 48% of the Indian population can access the internet, mainly concentrated in big cities. In the rural places, only 2% of the population can use the internet. This means that Noronha's desire for inclusion is held back by technology that is the privilege of a few controlled by a capitalist society. And this creates a great contradiction. While we deal with the feeling of access on the internet, those who have been silenced and can now finally be present cannot see themselves or testify in the archives. In fact, exomemory time is only available to a few, those who belong to developed countries, where 86% of the population are internet users compared to 47% in the developing world. In trying to respect the exomemory, Noronha does no more than replicate the past, subrogating the memory of others through his archivist impulse. So here we have the numbers of the internet users in our world. So we have this perception of that internet is everywhere, and it is not. In Africa, we can see that only 28.2% of population can access the internet, and Asia and Pacific less than 50%. So I'm going now to my final remarks. For those who can access the internet, sound archives have become a huge global repository of a fragmentary and reiterative profile. The overflow of data, paradata, metadata, and potential knowledge has generated a new disorder in archives, which contributes to the newer awareness of belonging and authority over memory, to international archive defragmentation policies, to sustainability practices, and the new conditions of free access to data and knowledge, something that I intend to discuss in future opportunities. In Telo's words, we are now dealing with unarchives in the sense that anarchy is the new order of archives. Faced with this state of excess of data and knowledge, leading to a form of recording and access to memory that is certainly fairer and more democratic, the archives require a different order, especially if we want to respect the exo-memory. Consequently, we must certainly add another excess, the excessive part of the population that does not have access to our privileged sound archives and also represented in it. It has no possibility of self-monitoring. In this sense, a question mark should be added to the title of this position paper, Sound Archives for All, the same mark that Frederick Noronha needs to add to his utopian project, Bytes for All. We may say, and to finalize, that the means to build the archive had drastically changed, but the inequities for the representation of exo-memory still remain. Thank you. I don't know how to say it in Kazakh, but Google Traducer is very helpful in these cases.
Thank you very much, Susanna. Thank you for your provocative presentation. You put many words and expressions in my mind. All the words and expressions are jumping in my mind.
Susanna, you have to move to your mic, your microphone, please.
Hmm? You have to use this.
No. Wait a minute, please.
No, we can listen. We can listen. Miguel.
Now.
But there are some returns. Okay, there is a technical problem with my headphones. So thank you again. Play it again, Sam. Thank you very much, Susanna, for your presentation. I was saying that you put a lot of words and expression in my mind. They are jumping expressions like exomemory, archive impulse, illusion, memory hunter, unarchive, new order, chaos, etc., etc., etc. So we have time for questions, please.
Well, I actually have probably not a question, but a comment. First of all, thank you, Susanna, for such mind-blowing paper. And the things you're discussing are bringing us to the new level of understanding what archive is. And Probably it's a question to existing archive, whether they are ready for this new environment of this unordered and chaotic data, or the data that seems to be chaotic. So many information that may be very useful to us as musicologists, that is still closed just because some archives and some forces in our world don't want to share the information, but the infrastructure is already here, and we can use it for sharing. Something about sharing. Thank you, Susanna.
Some institutions, they don't want to share the information. The problem of institutions is completely different from the problem of the individual users, because the institutions have a lot of rules that they have to obey. And some of them, they don't want to share their archives. They have like a treasure. They treat them as a treasure. They don't want to share them. And but at the same time, the same sounds that are in an institutions are shared by an individual collector, for example. And so we can have this information many times. And this also led us to inquire what are the role of the institutions. If we have so many people now who have the freedom to upload in the internet wherever they want. And so this is a big issue, especially for sound and music, that we record with a simple smartphone. So we can record it everywhere and upload in 2 hours or immediately after the conference, or immediately after the recording. So the institutions have to deal with a lot of rules. And copyright, for example, is a big issue. So I could not, for example, as Frederick Noronha used to do, I could not record everything without an informed consent, without having the signature of someone saying that, yes, you can record me, and I'm aware and I know what is the goal of your work. And even today, I don't know if you are in our European institutions, we have to destroy the recordings after 2, 3, or 5 years, for example. And this is something that is, I was interviewed by 2 European projects. And there is an informed consent and a declaration from the people that are interviewing me that says that my recordings, my interviews will be destroyed in 2 years after being used for scientific purposes. So this is also that we have to think about, also destroying the recordings, destroying the archive, new rules of Europe to destroy the archive, because we cannot archive everything. So this is a little bit chaotic. This is an archive, seeing from different points of view, the institutions, the individuals, those who are free to upload things in the internet. And that's it.
Thank you, Susanna. More questions or comments? Yes, please, Richter.
Yes, thank you, Susanna. I think we have to make a distinction between collection of data and an archive, because the archive is an authorized institution. We have law, as you said, several laws, and only a mass of data is not an archive. It's only a mass of data. Of course, we can find some connection between the data in a mass of data, of course, but it's not an archive like an institution we have, and we are working with this kind of institutions, all of us. So I think we do not be frightened because of this huge mess of data on the internet. I think it's normal. It's not, I think it doesn't disturb or archive work, archive method, because we have a special aim, a special task. For example, in Budapest, we have to deal with our traditional music and collection of this and dances and so on and so on. And it's special. For example, the banks have a huge mass of data. Of course, every person who has some money in the bank, and the moving of the money, every transaction is registered. It's a mass of data, huge mass of data. Of course, it's a problem later on, I think, also that what people will do with this huge mass of data in the internet world. But I think the archives will remain. It's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Hello, how are you? When I was speaking about archive, was not I was addressing the concept of archive not as an institution, a physical institution, but as a conceptual institution, we may say, because as we saw since the beginning of this meeting, everybody was speaking about archives in a very epistemological way, and seeing an archive not as a physical thing, but as something that is, as Foucault used to say, as a way of statement, a group of statements. I'm missing the word in English. And for example, Pedro Aragão, the collector with whom he was working, and we were working in Soma project, he refers to his collection as his archive. So we have, I know that we have the institutional archives, the physical archives, but now in my paper and in my point of view, we have to also see archive as an epistemological field, and very interesting and very fruitful field for thinking. Of course, not everything is an archive, and you're right, we have data, but it's a very interesting concept to think about when we are speaking about music and sounds and collections and the internet, of course.
Yes, of course, but I think I'm not sure that the proper name of that phenomena what you speak about is the archive. I'm not sure that is the proper name of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the problem. We have to find the exact terminology for every kind of phenomenon.
Mm-hmm. So probably it's not an archive, it's an archive.
Yes, an archive, okay.
Gerda, please.
We do not hear you. We do not hear you. Please switch on your.
Now, is it okay?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you, Susanna. And I'm very sorry that I couldn't listen to all papers presented this morning. Well, in our time, morning or afternoon, but partly. And I would like to make a short comment after the discussion between Paul and Susanna, just to your last remarks, the question mark, Susanna. And I think besides the discussion, what is an archive, institutional, or is it just the term archive, what we understand under archiving, a very open term, an open term as wide as colonial or decolonial. And what made me so much thinking is that we now think that the internet, as we are connected in a wide way just now, it's not possible for all. And still there are power relations, and still we are confronted with the same problems we are discussing for years. But it was so good to listen to new ideas, to new activities. I had forgotten the name of the person in Goa who invented this Bytes for All. It's a fantastic idea, and you explained so clearly where are the limits. But we have to accept we always have limits. And the wonderful thing is that we can discuss very openly the different approaches and ideas. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gerda.
Well, if we don't have more questions, again, thank you, Pedro. Thank you, Susana. And according to the program, the next event is, let me see, at 7 p.m. Almaty time, the welcome concert. So do you want to say,
Yes.
okay, Lera?
Okay, thank you, Miguel, and thank you to all presenters of today's sessions. So much inspiring. Yes, you're right, Miguel. Today at 7 p.m., which is 2 p.m. Central European time, will be a premiere on the YouTube channel of Kazakh National Conservatoire. It will be the concert prepared by our students and teachers, especially for our meeting. And you may watch it anytime that is convenient to you. It's not necessary to be directly on time. And I have one announcement for tomorrow. Since we have one withdrawal, Hanna Urbanchova won't be presenting tomorrow. We decided to move all the first session to a session up half an hour, just for those who have an early morning to have half an hour for sleep more. So tomorrow we will have 3 sessions of 2 papers each, and we will start at 8:30 Central European time, which is 1:30 p.m. at Almaty. That's it for today. So now we have a long break. Someone have lunch, someone almost have dinner, and see you all tomorrow on our sessions.